What is up, folks? Welcome back to the place to be. That's going to be the Fish Life Podcast, which is the lowest budget, actually live bass fishing podcast there is. Makes this the L-ball. Makes you guys the low ballers. Cheers, y'all. Let's get it. Yep, sure have. Every time, every day. Man, play that down just a little bit for me, Chris. Tonight, we're going to get into it, guys. Where have I been, Chris?
Where have you been?
I've been catching all... No, let it keep playing a little bit.
Oh,
keep
you
playing
want it.
keep
Oh,
playing a
you
little
want
bit. Let it go a little bit.
Oh, you want it.
Yeah, let it keep going a little bit. Let's feel that. You know what I mean? A little Whiskey Myers. Hey, I've been texting with that guy right there singing to us about fishing. He's been fishing in East Texas. I've been fishing in East Texas. I've honest to goodness, guys, I've just been working. Listen, I've come to a little bit of a block on the content, but more than anything else, I've been catching all the Lake Fork bass here lately. It has been pretty dang good. We're going to tell you about it. We're going to tell you all about that, tell you guys how to catch them on Lake Fork, and we're going to do reports and updates on all the tournament fishing that's been going on because there's been a lot of it, like a lot of tournament fishing happening.
A lot.
Yes. A few weeks ago, we told you guys it was tournament fishing season. I just saw Michael Bray pop in the comments. He was a gentleman that was with me for a few days this past week, and guess what? He can verify they bite that jig a little bit on old Lake Fork now. And they ain't little. Like, we ain't just catching, I shouldn't say we're catching all the fish in Lake Fork. We're catching all the ones that matter. Because it's like every time we swing the hammer, it ain't no baby. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it just ain't no, I ain't been posting no pictures. I ain't been posting no videos. There may have been some tactical decisions made on why I'm not posting pictures and videos. We may have been trying to keep that a little hush-hush for a little while because there's been, there's whole buzzards everywhere, dog.
Always. Everywhere.
And I swear, these videos are about to come out. And I swear, if that little midget shows up in that same creek channel, there's going to... Whoever was my customer that day, I apologize right now. Because there's going to be some fireworks if he shows up in that creek channel after this video drops. Because he ain't even been in the same county as me for months. But what's funny is some of those that talk about whole buzzards are the worst whole buzzards of all. I'm getting sidetracked, folks.
Let's get you back.
Listen, we don't need to go off down that road because it'll get real nasty real quick. We'll just stay where we are. Man, all is good, boys. I know I've been getting some messages. Hey, man, are you okay? Something going on? Everything's fine. I've been in a little bit of a complex decision-making process on how I'm going to do content going forward. I want to make some changes, and not changes in that, our content's always going to be about the same thing. It's going to be about helping others catch more and bigger fish and loving our fellow man. That's what it's always going to be about, always has been, always will be. But the format in which we deliver that in modern times in a crowded social media space, I'm thinking probably needs to change. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that and fit that into my schedule of, also being a fishing guide. Mm-hmm. Also running an app company. and also helping other guides. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guides that I help, and some of them are in here. I've seen Cody Mays commenting, helping those guys out and doing what I need to do to help those guys out. And also being a father of two. On top of all, and a single father nowadays of two, on top of all those things, I've got to figure out how to reformat the content and make it work for today's social media world. So there's been a little stall, been a little break. I do have some content. It's going to be kind of the same old way that we've always made it. But, man, it's some good content of us catching some good fish on a jig on Lake Fork. So I want to put that out there. We talked about it to you guys earlier in the year, told y'all that was going to be the main thing that would play this winter. And for me, sure enough, it has been. So we want to show you guys the evidence of that to give you guys confidence to go out there and do it. Hopefully you can learn something from it and go catch more and bigger fish because that's what we do. Chris.
Is it a black and blue jig by chance?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
There's only one color. We don't even bother with nothing else.
And it might have, is it the top secret black and blue guide jig?
We've been throwing that one some, but believe it or not, the one without the orange has been doing better.
Really?
Yep, the regular old black and blue has been doing the best.
They're getting wise to the
We are throwing a little bit of green in our trailer. We're throwing that Nirvana color trailer. It's got black and blue. We'll talk. Yeah, we can talk about all that. What's been going on with you, Chris? Because folks haven't seen you in a while either.
Yeah, I've been working a lot. I've been doing a little bit of fishing. We were supposed to have a media bass tournament yesterday on Lake Palestine, and that got postponed. So next tournament will be March. And even though I live on Lake Palestine and I've spent 1 million hours on that lake, March is actually tough for me on Palestine.
Why is that, you think?
Well, it's tough these days because the north end has no grass.
You can't
And
just go up there and throw a chatterbait in the trap and
right.
get after it.
I'm just not used to fishing the lake without grass.
A little
yet.
different. You know, just from a dude who fishes all the time, because I'm fishing a lake with no grass in it that I'm used to having grass right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just from a dude who fishes a lot, in my experience, once you get to that time of year, March, when those fish, they have to go shallow whether the grass is there or not. Dude, you fish some of the same areas that traditionally hold fish. You just fish them a little further away from the bank, and instead of a trap, you throw a square bill. And instead of a chatterbait, you throw a jerkbait.
Yeah.
And something else, when you get a bite, normally in the grass, you get a bite, you'll get them grouped up, you can get multiple bites. Well, that's not necessarily going to happen on that square bill and that jerkbait, but it will sometimes. But what you can do is when you do get a bite in that area, get that black and blue Cinco out and slow down. And to me, that's the deal. That's the way to. Those fish are still going to come in there. They're still going to do their thing. So those are the effective. So many of our fishing decisions we overthink, guys. I mean, we overthink so many. And this just kick us right into Billy Ray's Redneck Science for the week right now.
Come on.
Redneck Science means, folks, we keep it simple. We don't think about things in real scientific terms and means. We just think about them in common sense terms and means and use our experience in the outdoors for an entire lifetime to make those decisions. And man, we make a lot of these decisions more complicated than they need to be. A lot of time, the way to catch a fish needs to be determined by what baits you can fish efficiently in an area. You can catch fish in so many different areas in these lakes that are fertile in East Texas. Lake Fork, I mean, come March, there's not a lot of pockets on Lake Fork that you can't catch a fish. Like, you can catch a fish in every pocket on Lake Fork in March. So the decision becomes about what bait can I fish through here the most efficiently and effectively to draw some reaction bites. And when you got a lake like Palestine, which is full of timber, full of cover, stuff like that, but it doesn't have the vegetation you're used to, well, now things like a square bill and a jerkbait become the player in place of the grass baits like a trap and a chatterbait, because those baits work better in grass.
Right.
Square bill and jerkbait work better without grass. So just something to think about, guys, when you're making decisions. Take a look at the cover that is present. Pick the area you would want to fish of the lake if there was no cover in the lake at all. Pick that area that looks the best to you based on bottom contours and structure and creek channels and all that stuff. And then when you get to that area, look at the cover that's present, grass, wood, dock, rock, whatever it may be, and fish the baits that allow you to fish it the most effectively. That is the way. Just don't overthink it. Don't be like, man, I want to throw a chatterbait because it's March. No, yeah, you do. I get you and I hear you. Chatterbait can catch fish anywhere. I understand. But if it calls for a square bill to deflect off timber, and that's going to give you more chances at a reaction bite, by God, let's throw a square bill. Let's just fish the baits that are the most efficient.
I will tell you one of the things that I've switched up to lately on Lake Palestine that I've actually had some pretty decent success is a little bitty 3.8 inch swim bait. No blade, nothing like that. Just kind of.
Skeeter's entered the chat, folks.
Yeah.
Skeeter Bug, the fishing dog, has entered the chat.
So I was actually.
Okay.
I got to give credit to Mr. Cord Hudkins on that because we were talking about it. It's been probably a week or two ago, and I was explaining to him kind of like you and I talked.
For those who don't know, Cord Hudkins is the guy that started guiding last year.
Yesterday, really.
Yeah. He started guiding last year on Lake Fork, but he's a really good tournament fisherman that travels around fishing BFL, stuff like that.
Yes.
Great guy, great fisherman, and a good guide, good new guide on Lake Fork.
Yes. So I was explaining to him, some of the baits that are not going to work in some of these areas that I'm used to fishing year in and year out. And I said, man, I'm having a hard time getting confidence in something. And he said, man, why don't you just take your little paddle tail swim bait? Don't put nothing shiny on it. Don't put a spin. Just throw it. And then he said, throw it in line with your targets and bang it off targets. And he said, same thing as a squirt bill, but it's weedless.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
There you go.
It works
and
well.
Cord's one of them dudes that's traveled around the country fishing tournaments, so he's got little tricks and things like that from and having to catch a limit under tough conditions on tournament day, no matter what the weather does. Like, he's got some great knowledge, man. And that was one of the things that made me want to work with him so much whenever he decided to come up here. And I knew him right before he moved up here, and just talking fishing with him and hearing the way his mind worked and some of the different ways that he saw things. And he's really a guy that's pretty cool because he's not a dude that does he doesn't chase the dock talk bite. Like when you go to a tournament, everybody ends up throwing the same thing. Cord ain't really that dude. Like, what always impressed me is he's always doing something a little different. He's got his own little deals to figure out how to get limits in these tough conditions that you always seem to get thrown on tournament day.
Yes.
But he's just a good hand, man. I'm glad to hear he helped you. But no, he's a good dude. So that's kind of step one of Redneck Science. Step two of Redneck Science is going to be, we talked about this at length going into this winter. As soon as they announced that they were going to drop Lake Fork to 6 foot low, which it is right now, we talked about the creek channels were going to be the deal over the winter. And they absolutely have been. And they continue to be, and they will continue to be until we get some significant warm trends. And even after that, they'll still be near those creek channels most of the time. I'll say this, man. That jig bite's the deal right now, but I mean, there's guys catching them other ways on fork too, I'm sure. And they will bite a jerkbait every once in a while on that creek channel deal, especially on like a sunny, calm day. If them bait fish start flipping on the surface, we'll pick up a regular 106X jerkbait, like a 3 or 4 foot diving jerkbait, and throw it around the timber around that creek channel and catch those fish, because that's one thing they love about that creek channel. They've got that timber there, and they can just rise up that timber and suspend up in that sunshine when it comes out, and then that jerkbait will get them. So, not really using live sonar, honestly. As many people love to use live sonar in the wintertime, these fish that I'm looking for, most of the time are spending their life buried down in a root system at the base of a tree, right on the drop-off into a creek channel, and you're not going to even see that fish on live sonar until you throw a bait in there to him. And some of these fish are in creek channels that are 6 or 8 foot deep in the bottom. They may only be 2 foot deep on the top side where the root ball is. So I'm not wanting to run that live sonar because I'm pretty close. Like, I'm pitching, flipping. I don't want to run that loud pinging live sonar right on top of their head. So I'm actually turning my live sonar off when I'm fishing these creek channels. And all I'm doing is using my Humminbird 360. A Humminbird 360 identifies a creek channel so well. It looks just like it does on side imaging, where you get that dark shadow where the channel is, and you can see both sides of it. You keep your boat right in it and just flip to every stump along the channel. And instead of normally in Lake Fork, I'm fishing my creek channel bend fish on Lake Fork. Typically this time of year are bonus fish. Mm-hmm. They're extra fish outside of our grass fish. Our grass drain and channel fish that we catch on trap and chatterbait are the majority of the fish that we catch. And sometimes shallow point fish this time of year can set up too. Those are the main numbers of fish that we catch. Then we'll go try to catch a couple big ones on a creek channel bend. And in those situations, it's been very specific, where I come up to a creek bend, spotlight the boat, and cast directly to that one bend. Not what I'm doing now. With all those fish being condensed in that low water and all that grass being gone, we're covering the whole creek channel now. We're actually moving all the way up and down the creek channel, following it on 360 and flipping to every stump and trying to get in as many root systems as we can with that jig. But that's how we're doing it. I will say this, when they're biting it, oh God, especially last week until it turned cold on Wednesday or whatever, like, these were some of the most violent jig bites that I've had in years, Chris. Now, you know what I'm talking about because you've done some of this with me a little bit at times. Mm-hmm. But these jig bites were, I mean, it's not a normal mushy jig bite or just a hard thump.
Like shaking the reel handle.
Dude, it rattles the guides on your rod. Like, it scares you when they bite it. They're biting it so hard. So they've really been on the jig. They're eating it. They're choking it. It's been good. I did see a question quite a bit earlier that popped up that said, what are you taking notes of while the lake is low? The answer to that is kind of everything. I mean, there's so much knowledge to be gained while the lake is low. And I've seen a lot of guys just driving around and not even fishing. There's Mike Bray, my guy from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He said they tried to take your rod away. They were knocking the fire out of it, dude.
So I think one thing to realize too is in 2014 when the lake was 6 foot plus low, it's a different lake at 6 foot low today than it was then.
Yes. Well, yeah, it is. It is a different lake. It is a different lake. But for this wintertime, it's kind of the same deal. You know, we're doing the same thing. We're fishing a jig in a creek channel, which is what we were doing back then too. But
I'm just saying your notes will be different this time around.
Definitely different areas are playing different. Different areas are better and different areas are worse. Some of the areas that were good back then are not as good.
Because of the grass population not being where it was.
And just fish population shifting across the lake. Mm-hmm. Some of those creek channels start rounding off and still. Some of the creek channels that I used to fish 10 years ago when the lake was low, they're not nearly as good now because they're rounded off. Like the one in Glade traditionally has always been. That creek channel, I don't know if it's the changing water levels or the grass that died off that just kind of washed up into it, but a lot of the Glade creek channel has gotten silted. There's areas of it, you can still catch fish in it, but it's not nearly as good as it used to be when it had those harder edges on it. And then there's some areas where the creek channel is still really good drop-offs. I found new ones that have good drop-offs that I didn't fish 10 years ago. But that's what we're looking for, the creek channels with the big drop-offs. Take notes on what's going on while the lake's low. What are we taking notes of? Everything. From brush piles on docks, like how docks that have a ton of brush and stuff like that. For sure, taking note of rock. there's a lot more rock in Lake Fork than I thought, folks.
Yeah.
A lot more rock in Lake Fork. These shallow points that run out that we're all calling shell beds, it's majority of it's rock. Like it's almost all those shell beds that I fished for all these years that I thought were, scattered shell and clay or whatever. It's rock more than anything else. And you can go see it right now. I found a few house foundations, some that I knew were there, some that I didn't know, but now I know exactly what, even the ones I did know about, I know exactly what they look like, exactly how they're shaped, where they lay, everything about them.
There's a couple culverts up in the little caney area that you can still see pretty good on your graph. I don't know if you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's it'd be the northwest side before you take the left.
Yeah, I don't know those. Man, we're going to talk after this is over.
I got you.
All right. But I'll tell you one thing that I've been taking notes of is navigation. I am in the process of making the greatest set of boat lanes that will ever be made for Lake Fork. Period. Like, nobody's going to make them any better than this. Okay, it's not going to happen. And there's boat lanes that are out there that have been really good and productive. Lance Vick has done a phenomenal job over the years. Stephen Father came up with one. I know there's a couple guys that are doing some new ones now that the lake's low again. Ours aren't released yet. They're not going to be released for quite some time. I've got a lot of work left to do, and I'm having to do it around guiding and parenting. And that's another reason content hasn't been coming out. I've spent days at times idling areas of the lake because when I'm done with this, you will literally, I will be able to run the lake almost like there's not timber in it. Like going side to side in timbered creek arms or just zigzagging wherever I want to because I'm taking the time to mark all these trails. And not only am I taking time to mark all the trails, Chris, but I'm taking time to mark the hazards to get anywhere near that trail on either side. So when that trail gets tight, when that lane gets tight that you're going through, you can see the hazard marks. And for those of you that may want to purchase these boat lanes someday that we're making, you will be able to make the decision, can I keep my boat on this line this tight, or do I need to slow down and idle through here? But you'll have the clear-cut path to go through, and you'll know exactly how close your hazards are to said path. And on some of those paths, those hazards are going to be very close. But we're going to include hazards. We're going to have trails, not waypoints, but trails. And it's just going to be, all over the lake, bro. Like,
I've seen some of what you've.
I've got 4 different ways to go into the mouth of Ray Branch. 4 different angles to come into the mouth of Ray Branch. And you can run all the way to the roadbed in the back without ever stopping. And you can run into the mouth of the kickoff cove in Ray Branch. Dale Creek. I've got 3 different ways going into Dale. You can run right to the pond dam at the mouth of Dale. Everybody knows what that is? You can literally come in from the mouth of Dale, run around a little patch of trees and run right to that pond dam now, which is somewhere that I fished all the time, and I usually had to idle a little bit to get to it. I can literally set my boat down, put my trolling motor in, and start fishing now when I get to that pond dam. There's other boat lanes and trails that are available, and there's new ones coming out right now. Here's what I would say. You might want to hold on to your money till you get to see these. And we're going to do a preview of them here sometime over the next few weeks, hopefully, and we are going to put them up for pre-order. There'll be a discounted price for pre-orders here within the next few weeks, hopefully, as well. And we'll get all those details to you guys as we do it. But those boat lanes that we're working on, they ain't nothing else out there like it, dude. I've been on that lake for 10 years. I've seen it at all-time low. I've seen it over full pull and seen it like it is now. The more timber that keeps falling in, it's really opened up some areas. There's areas of the lake you can run a lot more than you realized you could. A lot more than you realized you could. So stay tuned for a preview on that, folks. If you're thinking about buying a boat lane ship, you might just hold on just a minute. If you want to buy a new boat lane ship, an updated one for new water levels, that's another thing. My boat lane ship is going to have 2 different colored lanes. It's going to have one set of lanes, and not different sets of lanes, but this color, right, will be good all the way down to 6 foot low, current lake level. Mm-hmm. And then the other color will be from 3 foot low and up. You can run that wide open. So anything that's being made right now and put out, unless they're doing all the detail, marking the hazards, marking the lanes that are good at different water levels, you're just not going to get as good of a product unless you wait till we're done with ours. So stay tuned. It's going to be, I'm really proud of it. I'm putting an immense amount of time in. It's probably going to be more expensive than the other boat lane ships because I'm putting tons and tons of time, sacrificing guide trip days. I've scheduled days to do this. I'm sacrificing money to build this chip because I want to do. You know how I am, Chris. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it the very best I can, and that's what this is going to be. I think I've ranted enough about a boat lanes chip.
Good things to come on a boat lanes chip.
Yes. Billy Ray's Redneck Science is wait for the Year Lake Fort Guy boat lanes chip. It's going to be the deal.
And that's where Billy's been, idling around the lake.
Some of you have probably seen me. I know I've talked to some of y'all that have seen me idle around. I'm like, I'm just marking boat lanes, dude.
This dude has burnt 614 gallons of $3.50 gas.
Yeah, whoever buys this boat from me is going to be like, man, why do you got so many? Dude, you got 257 hours in a year, 300 hours in a year? I'll be like, yeah, bro, 200 of them is just from idling the last month.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry about it. No big deal.
That's funny. Do we want to jump into some viewer questions before we get into...
Dude, we never... Guys, by the way, we never did ask you. We're 20 minutes in. Hey, please hit the thumbs up for us, man. We sure would appreciate it. Drop us the comment as you guys have been doing. But continue dropping us comments so we know who we're talking to.
It looks like several people were well ahead of you on that deal.
Subscribe to this channel. Turn the notifications on. And oh, yeah, share. Sharing is caring. We need all the shares we can get, man. Please do share it.
Todd.
Say some. Well, yeah, we'll take a couple of viewer questions before we get into tournament talk.
Come on.
Dusty Smith said he's ready to pre-order today. We'll have it up soon. Where is CB's WM shirt?
Whiskey Myers shirt.
Yeah, where's your Whiskey Myers shirt, CB? That's Todd Fleischer, by the way. That's the bus driver for Whiskey Myers asking you that.
It's actually in the wash.
It's in the wash. So it's been getting used.
I wear it all the time.
There you go. Frank Firestone says, sounds great. Just remember GPS has a plus or minus 3 foot of error on the global positioning satellite. Yeah, true. Yeah, we're not doing anything that's that tight where it's 3 foot, right? Like we're not doing anything like that. And we've got the hazards marked. So you'll know within 3 foot of where those hazards are, and then you can make the decision on whether or not you want to run that or not. Have I been having any luck with A-rigs and jerkbaits? Haven't been throwing an A-rig lately. I've really been focusing on that jig deal. But we do pick up a jerkbait and catch a fish on it every once in a while right now.
Hey, if you're looking for one bite these days, it's not a bait deal to throw a glide bait right now either.
No, a glide bait is a good time of year to throw a glide bait. And even like next week with it getting a little bit warmer, even though the nights are cold, like some of those fish, just because of the daylight hours coming into February, are going to start moving shallower and shallower. And these shallow points are really going to start playing. And then, yes, glide baits, A-rigs, a little bit light A-rigs, square bills, flat-sided square bills, those jerk baits, all that's going to play on those shallow points.
That little swim bait.
And that's going to have to start happening. I haven't been doing that because I get married to that jig bite and I just lock it into my hand and I go all day and it's like, yeah, we only got 8 bites, but we had 28 pounds, you know? So that's kind of what's been going on. In fact, that's what went on the last full day I had with Mike Bray. And I think we had 7 or 8 bites and we had 28 pounds. I think we only boated 5 or 6 fish because we just had some misses that day. Yeah. But we had 28 pounds. So anybody goes home with 28 pounds for their best 5 and isn't happy, like, just don't come fishing with me. Yeah. I don't know how to make you happy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, when I pick up a black and blue jig this time of year,
it's hard to get it out of your hand. It's been hard for me to get it out of my hand. And because you have to get that, like, that's that bait. You got to just put it in your hand and go. And keep it there and trust that you're going to get those bites by the end of the day. If you don't commit to it, then you're going to mill around for 3 or 4 hours fishing it, get 2 bites, and be like, oh, well, this sucks.
Especially if you get on that black and blue jig deal in like a shallow cover type situation where you got to make some.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this too. So many of our bites have been coming late in the day. Like we'll have 1 fish at lunch, dang near every day, and then go back out. And at the end of the day, we've got 8 or 10 bites, you know, and it just so many of our bites are coming in the last hour or 2 of the day. So that's a key component right now too. That's just this time of year. You're going to catch them better in the afternoon typically. So.
Yep.
Are the shallow points primary and secondary points? Yeah, they can be both. The main thing is finding the ones that are somewhere where they like to spawn in big numbers. So, like the shallow points at the mouth of Glade, the shallow points at the mouth of Birch, Little Caney, Dale Creek has some really good ones. These big creek arms, if you find those out at the mouth, then those main lake ones can be good. And then just some of these pockets that they spawn in can have little points that can be good as well.
So what I do is I do it the complete opposite the way I do
like
it.
All those little pockets across from Oak Ridge and Minnebucket, those points right there, because fish spawn in all those coves really well.
Correct.
Those points on all those little pockets at the mouth of them, which are kind of secondary points, or I guess they could be main lake, but they all play really well on that deal as well.
See, like in the fall, whenever I'm running in and fishing my way out, I do it the complete opposite this time of the year. Like if I got a big creek arm, like for example on Lake Palestine, we found some fish. It's Caney Bay. It's a pretty big area on Lake Palestine. We started at the main lake point and we fished our way to about halfway in. And if we don't find nothing, we skedaddle, go find something else. But I just do it the complete opposite.
Somebody asked a good question here. What type of water clarity are we dealing with? In Missouri, they get clear water and the black and blue doesn't work. They actually have to use natural colors. But here we have, no, our water's stained. I mean, our water is, especially this time of year. I mean,
What, 2 foot at best?
it's not even that, really. I mean, it's maybe a foot. Really, realistically, maybe a foot.
Yeah.
Our water in
in
East Texas overall is generally stained.
I can tell you, Lake Palestine is about 6 to 8 inches.
Yeah, Palestine's one of the dirtier ones, but then
Right.
you can go to lakes around here like Athens.
Quitman.
Is going to be clear. I mean, you got 5 or 6 foot of water clarity,
Hawkins.
visibility. Hawkins, Welsh and Brandy Branch are super clear, but those are power plant lakes. But I mean, so there are some exceptions, but especially the bigger lakes around here, pretty much all of them are going to have stained water.
A foot or less of visibility.
Man, we got to get going because we've been talking a long time about Lake Fork stuff. I know you guys have been missing that. We'll get back to doing more of that as the weeks go on. Let's get into
The opens. Yeah?
yeah, sure. Well, is that the one we're doing first, Bassmaster Open?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do Bassmaster Open.
Yeah, we're going to do Bassmaster Open first.
So there was a Bassmaster Open,
And let me tell you something.
the field, bro.
If you want to fish against this field, dude, good for you.
Dude, these Bassmaster Open fields are insane. So Bassmaster Open on Kissimmee Chain.
What'd you call it earlier?
It's,
Elite Series Junior?
but it's not even junior because it's like
Yeah.
half the Elite Series field is in it, or
Yeah.
quarter, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's an extra 50 or there's an extra 130 boats or so.
And they're all good.
Yeah, even these guys that we don't know their names of, almost all of those guys are pretty dang salty. But Brandon Lester came through with a win, 3-day total of 51.2 on the Kissimmee Chain. Guys, we know we're a little bit early. Winter's kind of hitting us right now in the teeth. So the fishing's not great on any of these events we're seeing right now.
Right.
We're not seeing these huge bags yet. That's coming. That deal will happen. Right now it's a little bit of a grind. It's a late winter, early pre-spawn grind in all these events. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's entertaining. I like watching them try to figure them out in those conditions. But just to go over some of the highlights from the Bassmaster Elite Series, or Bassmaster Open, Southern Open at Kissimmee Chain, Brandon Lester won. Our boy John Sukup, who we talked to on the last podcast a couple weeks ago, he got a top 10. He got 8th. That dude won those 2 MPFL events last year, had the best year anybody's ever had without winning Angler of the Year on any trail, and then got 8th at the Bassmaster Open down there in Florida, which that's not supposed to be his deal, y'all.
No, he just beat
He's a live scope guy, right?
He just beat Zach Burge. Not a big deal.
Yeah, he's a live scope guy. Yeah. Oh, he didn't just beat Zach Burge.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. He beat Jason Williamson.
Yeah, I mean,
Who else did he beat?
so let's just go over some of it. Yeah, Zach Burge was right behind him in 9th. Jason Williamson was in 13th. Gerald Swindle's in 14th. Charlie Hartley's in 16th. Kyle Monty, 17th. Frank Talley, our guy, Big Frank, had a good fish. Now, Frank had an interesting tournament because Frank, after day 1, was at like 100-something. Now, these are 3-day events, but only the top 10 fished the 3rd day. So most of these guys, 125 of them, are fishing for 2 days. 215
Correct.
of them are fishing for 2 days, and then the 10 fish the last day. But Frank was at 100 and something after day 1.
And popped a big one.
Yes, and came all the way back to 18th place. So good job to Frank Talley, man. Got him a nice little check out of that. Made him several $1,000s on that deal. So Kyle Monty, Frank Talley, Trey Swindle, Gerald Swindle's nephew, Buddy Gross is in here. Sam George, who's a great angler, is in here. There was Kenta Kimura was in this field. Brian New's in this field. I mean, it's
Brandon
Palanick's in this field. Matt Pangrack. It's Bradley Hallman, Brad Watley, Daryl Gleason, Austin Felix, Keith Poche, which Keith Poche is having a great first Bass Pro Tour event after day 1. He went straight from there, straight to Louisiana to Bass Pro Tour.
Oh, Paul Marks? You know who that is? Me neither. Keep going.
Quentin Capo's in here. I mean, we could keep going down this list. Todd Otten's in here. It's just, I mean, it's crazy. Garrett Paul. I mean, I can't. Every time I scroll, I see another name that's like was an Elite Series guy or has done something.
Lineberger.
I mean, just really, really good fish. I know Canterbury was in that field. It just,
Yeah,
dude, that is that field is insane. Even though they got rid of some of the Hackneys and Christies and Scott Martins,
Matty Wong,
dude, yeah,
That's
oh
so
yeah,
cool.
the new qualifier, yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt Robertson's in there as well. Dude, that field is unbelievable, man. So
it was just a long tournament.
So Brandon Lester, congratulations. Sukup, congratulations. Tally, I mean, all you guys do that are. I mean, Lester for the win, but those other two guys just because they're friends of the channel and friends of ours. Man, that is one heck of an accomplishment to finish that high in that field.
Joey Cifuentes, I think he's the dude that fished the Big Five, that wears that cowboy hat everywhere he goes.
Yeah, so that's what happened at the Bassmaster Open. We've had 2 days. We're on day 2 of like 365 of the Bass Pro Tour.
That's right.
How many days they have?
Yeah,
6-day tournaments. So we've had 1 day from each group. Now we wanted to go over this because we made some picks, bro.
We did make some picks.
We made some picks on this Bass Pro Tour.
Oh, hold on.
And I don't know how many of you guys are into fantasy fishing, but we made these picks almost a month ago. When we made, it was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago we made these picks. You might ought to start listening
You
to
might say your boys are on to something. I'm just going to
like, we've been pretty consistent about these picks that we make, dude. Like, we are pretty, like, I think we had 5 of our, was it
5 of 6
on Angler of the Year?
Yes.
We're all in the top 10.
Yes, and then I think our number 1 picks were both top 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
So, yeah, our picking, as far as that goes, has been extremely good. So we'll say this. So I picked on this event. You guys help me. I'm gonna pick Brian Thrift, Chris Lane, and who else?
Brian Thrift, Chris Lane, and
Poche.
Keith Poche.
So Brian Thrift, Keith Poche, and Chris Lane. So Keith Poche is in 6th in his group. Brian Thrift is in 3rd in his group. And Chris Lane is in 16th. So my 3 picks for this tournament are all well inside the cut line, and 2 of them are in the top 10. I have a 3rd and a 6th.
Yeah.
You picked.
Let's just get the bad one out of the way.
Brett Height, we know.
Yeah.
Who else did you pick?
I picked Brett Height.
Jacob Wheeler.
Jacob Wheeler. I'm always going to pick Wheeler. And I also picked Jeff Sprague.
Okay. Jeff Sprague is in 9th, and Jacob Wheeler is in 8th in their group, and then Brett Height is in last.
Yeah, Brett Height's having a rough
Brett Height
day.
goose egg on day 1.
Yeah,
On day 1.
He had a rough day. I think.
But again,
battery issues had to have been.
5 out of 6 inside the cut line, 4 out of 6 in the top 10. Like, bro, we kind of own this. Like, we can do this picking these things. We've got a little something
You
going.
might as well just call us Vegas.
We got a little something going.
Yeah, we're Vegas.
Yeah, we've done all right. We've done. And listen, this ain't us bragging. I guess it is a little bit,
I'm
but
bragging.
it's the results are the results.
Yeah, we pick good. We pick good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good at picking. We're good at booger picking.
All kind of picking.
We're good at butt picking, and we're good at fishing tournament picking. The rest of it, we don't really know.
If you're good at them 3 things and you can't walk away with a smile, you got problems. That's a you problem, not a me problem.
Lots of relief.
Lots of relief. That's right.
This is taking a turn now.
It's
See?
like-
You just made me lose my whole train of thought.
It's like J.G. Wentworth. It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Listen, I don't even know what to do with you right now. Overall, this tournament, though, bro,
Terrible.
North Louisiana pre-spawn period, man,
But it makes sense.
they're not catching them.
But it makes sense why.
You've got Jared Littner is in first place in a group, and he's got 11 fish for 33 pounds.
Man, I'm pretty sure the tail end of that storm we just had is going right through there right now.
Then
So
you
they're-
got Stephen Browning at 6 fish for 21 pounds. He's leading the other group. And you got a bunch of dudes that are, like the cut. Let's look at the cut line. So the cut line is Bobby Lane in Group A is 2 fish for 5 pounds and 9 ounces after a full day of fishing. And the cut line in Group B is even worse. It's Brett Myers with 2 fish for 3 pounds, 15 ounces, dude.
Sounds like
You
one
got
of my
guys that are
days.
going to make the cut with 2 fish for 4 pounds.
Sounds like I should have.
Well, after 1 day. Now, that's obviously going to double and probably, hopefully, go up the further they get away from the cold. But man, that's really tough fishing at that level.
It sounds like me pre-fishing.
Something I encourage you guys to do when you're looking at professional level tournament results, don't just look at the winners and go, man, that guy caught him. That lake's fishing great. No.
Look at the bottom half of the field.
Anthony Gagliardi, he's better than all of us in this chat room right now. Like, he's better than all of us.
No doubt.
Okay? And that sucker's catching 2 fish for 3 pounds. Like, the lake ain't fishing very good. Like, it's fishing extremely tough when a guy like Anthony Gagliardi's catching 2 fish for 3 pounds. And we can go, and a guy like Brett Hyde is 0. And guys, guess what? Obviously, with 2 fish for 3 pounds, it's not a 2-pound minimum. They dropped the minimum down to 1 pound because it was fishing tough. So, I mean, that's some tough fishing when a 1-pounder counts as a keeper and you can't get but 2 for 3. Man, I don't know what to say. That's just tough fishing.
Yeah, I've seen many a days like that.
Is it going to turn on throughout this event? Do you think the fishing's going to get better throughout the event?
Man,
because traditionally in fishing tournaments, the bigger weights are brought in the beginning phases of the tournament. The weights tend to fade as these multi-day events unfold.
So here's the deal. With all the weather that's kind of swept through the South in the last week, I don't think this is going to end up being a very good tournament overall.
As far as catching goes?
As far as catching goes. The format just doesn't suit. Now, if it was a put your best 5 together, and these guys maybe
somebody catches only 3 or 4, but they get an 8-pounder.
Right, yeah. I just don't think this format suits winter cold fronts.
Here's what I don't understand, and I've said this a couple times, and it's fine. Like, I enjoy watching these guys try to figure it out in tough conditions. We'll get this. Listen, when they go to Palestine in April, we're gonna watch them catch a bunch of good fish.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna catch a bunch of 4, 5, 6 pound fish on Lake Palestine in April. We're gonna get to see plenty of that on the Bass Pro Tour this year.
They better not fish none of my holes.
Yeah, whole buzzards. Professional level whole buzzards.
That's right.
But I don't mind seeing these events, but what I don't understand is with a every fish counts format, I don't know why they seem to insist on going to these places where it's going to be tough to catch a bunch of fish.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to Lake Fork at the end of February, which is great if you're coming to try and catch a giant. It's not great if you're coming to try and catch 15 bass. Like, most people on earth cannot catch 15 bass on Lake Fork at the end of February.
Yeah, why not go to Falcon?
Or Florida.
Or Florida. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any of those lakes.
Or, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be Falcon with their format. Why don't they go to Choke Canyon?
Yeah.
You want to talk about a fun tournament to watch?
Yeah.
Put them suckers on Choke Canyon and watch it.
Well, the problem is Choke Canyon is the size of your kitchen.
Well, it's not that small. Choke Canyon, what's the acreage on that?
Oof, don't get me the line, but it ain't big.
Right, but it's not like a 1,000-acre lake.
No.
I mean, it's bigger than Lake Hallbrook.
Yeah, but not much bigger.
Sure. Come on.
It ain't that much bigger.
It's got to be.
In the grand scheme of things, no, it's not.
It's got to be.
Look it up.
We're about to look this up
We're
right now.
about to look this up. Me and Billy are having an argument.
Yep.
And it has to be...
has to be settled.
Has to be settled.
We cannot let this
We can't let it go. Can't let it go. Please hold. Do, 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 do. It's not that big.
Okay. I want you to see something here.
No.
That's Choke Canyon, okay? I didn't scale up or scale down. Where's Mineola? That is Lake Hallbrook.
It's not that much.
It's like
I understand.
8 times, 10 times bigger than Lake
Still not
Hallbrook.
that big. Still not that big.
This guy.
It's tiny.
It's only 40 boats, though. If you got
That's
10
true.
Lake Hallbrooks,
That's true.
you can fit 40 boats on it.
That's fair.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Still small. What's your guess?
7,000 or 8,000 acres.
I'm gonna say 6. What we got?
Ha! Bro.
Timmy.
Bro, it's the same size as Lake Fork.
It's 22?
25.
Oh, God.
Lake Fork's 27 at full pool.
Yeah, it's wrong.
I hate when that happens.
That's what this says, though, surface area 25,000 acres, but it didn't look that big on the map.
No, it
That I
doesn't.
just pulled it up on.
No, it looks significantly smaller than Lake Fork.
It does look a lot smaller than Lake Fork because we'll zoom way out. There's Lake Fork.
Yeah.
Give me down here. So where is it? Right here?
There's no way.
That ain't
it's
it.
the
That
same-
ain't it.
I was fixing to say. There's no way it's the same size as Lake Fork.
Not even close.
No.
Let's see. There it is. Oh, dude, it's
It's probably close.
pretty close.
Yeah.
It's pretty close.
Thank y'all
actually.
for holding with us. I was wrong.
Yeah, Choke Canyon is it's plenty big for an MLF event or any other event, honestly.
I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah, it's plenty big. Plenty big.
Well, there's that.
This guy's an idiot. What can I say? Oh, bring our agenda back up.
Man, they should go to Hawkins. I just scared Skeeter.
One more thing we wanted to go over tonight, guys, with y'all, and that is the Bassmaster Elite Series event is coming up on St. John's River.
St. John's. And we got some picks.
We did. We made these picks already.
And one of my picks is named John.
But since we're bragging about our picking, we wanted to go ahead and remind everybody of our picks as we go into this week. So if you want to plug some of these into your fantasy fishing, I guess you still have time to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
You might want to. So my picks for this event on the Bassmaster Elite Series, first event of the year, St. John's River, Florida, which starts this Thursday.
Florida.
I've got Lee Livesey, Greg Hackney, and Patrick Walters. My boy Chris has got Drew Cook, Brandon Polnick, and John Cruz. We just throwing that out there.
Do with the information as you will.
That's it. That's all there is to it. Not much to go over on that.
Watch them all finish last.
There's no way.
No way.
No way with that crew right there, dude. No way. You're right. Drew Cook does do good in Florida. Polnick I worry about. He does not typically do good in Florida.
And that's why I think he'll do good.
But John Cruz has had some good Florida tournaments. Patrick and Greg both did really good on that same event last year. Patrick does good everywhere. Greg kind of does good. And Greg, if it's a shallow water fishery, Greg's good, so he's always good there. And Lee has had some good history in Florida
It's
on the Elite
hard.
Series
It's
in
hard
his
to
brief
bet.
career.
It's hard to bet against any of those six, to be honest with you. But if I'm going to take the wild card out of that six, Lee is the wild card, in my opinion.
You think he's the wild card?
For sure.
Why is that?
Just because I think he's the one that not only will we be like, oh, Lee's in the top five. Lee's the one that can run away.
Yeah, no, he's a big. That's a Lake Fork thing, you know. You
He's
look
a big
at
fish guy.
guys that come from Lake Fork, like Kelly Jordan, who's won big bass and more tournaments than anybody else on a professional level. Takahiro Omori definitely has a reputation for catching giants. We saw what Lee did with 43 freaking pounds on Lake Fork last year.
He just knows big fish and their behavior in this time of the year.
And everybody that comes from Lake Fork does. That is one thing Lake Fork teaches you is how big Florida strain bass behave.
And he's targeting Florida strain bass just in a different pond.
Yeah, Lake Fork guys and Talk and Kelly both do good in Florida. And the biggest bag that has ever happened on the Elite Series was Dean Rojas on a Florida lake. Oh yeah, he was living at Lake Fork at the time, and that was his home training ground. I mean, there's something to the Lake Fork deal, training these guys how to catch these bigger Florida strain bass. When they go to Florida, they tend to shine a little bit.
I mean, I tell people all the time.
I don't know how you can say. Here's my thing. I'm not real sure what your definition of wild card is in this situation, but I don't know how you call a guy a wild card when he's been in the top 10 angler of the year 2 out of 3 years that he's been out there. He just came off a top 5 in angler of the year, and he's won 2 events in the last year. Like that's a hard guy to say you're surprised that he's doing good.
Yeah, but I'm just mainly what I mean by wild card.
That's what I say. I don't know what your definition of wild card is exactly.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Not what you would typically. I think as far as like out of those 6, Lee is the one that would blow the field away and walk.
Could.
Yes.
He's the one, but at least that's the kind of fisherman he is.
Correct. He's a.
I wouldn't say any event. Like there's some events that they're going to go to where you're like, well, that's probably not Lee's deal.
Like a feast or famine type deal.
But yeah, when Lee gets on him, he's liable to blow your doors off.
Embarrass everybody.
He could. Yeah, he could. He could.
But I mean, out of those,
That's so hard to do in a field. You know, we don't ever really see that. very often.
Right.
You don't see somebody just blow their doors off. Now, when you do, for whatever reason, it is usually on Lake Fork, right? Like when they come to Lake Fork, there's usually a pretty big gap between the margin of victory deal. Look at what Patrick Walters did in the fall. Look at what Brandon Cobb. I think Lake Fork has 2 of the top 3 margin of victory victories of all time, and they've only been coming to Lake Fork for 3 years, dude. Three? This will be the 4th year. They've only been coming to Lake Fork for 3 years, and 2 of the 3 margin of victory gaps is biggest of all time is from Lake Fork, and one was Patrick, and the other one was Brandon Cobb. And Lee's would have been if he wasn't so far behind going into day 3, because God knows he caught enough on day 4.
I tell everybody this all the time. When you fish at Lake Fork day in and day out, you can go anywhere and catch them. If you can learn how to catch them on Lake Fork, you can catch them in any other lake.
No doubt.
In the country.
It's a great training ground.
Yes.
It is a phenomenal training ground. It's a very, and that's why it's a phenomenal training ground, is those Florida strain bass, those really big Florida strain bass, which are the hardest to catch. Oh yeah, and these have more pressure on per acre than any other major lake in the country, that's for sure. Any other major destination lake, there's nothing that's even close to Lake Fork on pressure per acre because of how small it is and how close it is to a major city. It's the closest to a metropolis, and it's the smallest. So it's going to get by far the most pressure on those fish.
That's right.
So yeah, that's another thing. And then the versatility of the fishery, right? Normally, Lake Fork, you can catch them shallow year round. You got vegetation, you got wood, you got docks, you got brush, you got rock. You got a lot more rock than I thought we did.
Yeah.
You got rock, you got bridges. I mean, you got points, humps, pond dams, road beds, ledges. I mean, creek channel ledges. I mean, you've got a little bit. The only thing that Lake Fork doesn't train you on is current. Like major significant current. You don't get trained on that at Lake Fork. But you know what the easiest thing to learn is? How to fish current. Because all current does is it positions fish. It just puts them in a spot. And once you learn what those spots are, it's easy to catch them. Easier to catch them.
Yeah.
You become more productive. So that's the only thing Lake Fork doesn't train these guys on is current. We don't have very much current in Lake Fork usually. So.
But Lake Fork's the best at everything else.
It definitely trains them.
You heard it here first, folks.
You look at the guys that's kicked out. It's like, here's the thing. You see guys pop up from all over the country, and some guys from Florida, and they show up and they kind of go away. You see some guys from the north, they show up, they kind of go away. And some of them stick. Seth Fighter, these different guys, they stick. Obviously, there's good ones from all over the country. There's good fishermen all over the country that are at the top level. When a guy from Lake Fork breaks through to the Elite Series, he doesn't go away.
Yeah,
he stays.
I was gonna say the only other lake that probably keeps anglers around as long as Lake Fork would be Gunnersville. That'd probably be
but Gunnersville has a lot of dudes that come up and go.
Yeah.
Like the dudes from I'm just telling you, the dudes from Lake Fork that get through, they stay for a while, and they do some damage. I mean, when they're there, they do some damage. James Niggemar is no longer on the Bassmaster Elite Series. He still fishes the Big Five, or whatever, the FLW Tour, or whatever it's called now. But James Niggemar was on the Elite Series for over a decade, and for about 10 years, he was one of the most consistent guys on planet Earth. He never got a win, but that dude had more top 20s, it seemed like, than everybody back then. I mean, I don't know what it is exactly. I mean, I guess it's all those things we talked about, but there's definitely something to the Lake Fork training ground. To bring back up Choke Canyon, Bass Champs was just there. It took 28 pounds to win it. Yeah,
no surprise.
Yeah, and those fish have got to be in full pre-spawn, almost spawn mode at this point down there.
Yeah, they're probably not far
that
from
would
the frog.
Like, why doesn't Bass Pro Tour go there early in the year? That would be a great place because they don't need facilities and all that like Bassmaster does. Weighing facilities and all that.
Right.
Like, why don't they go there? For those that don't know, Choke Canyon is one of the best lakes in the country over the last 5 years. Like, it's the little. I mean, Mark Zona goes there and films a show every year. There's a reason. Like, it's a hammer hole, dude.
Hey, I'll tell you another good one down that way.
It's numbers and bigs.
I'll tell you another good one down that way is Lake Whitney.
Well, Lake Whitney's not, Texas is a big place, dog. You got to be careful when you say down that way because Lake Whitney's like 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours away from Choke Canyon.
I'm just saying, though, it's down that general
But Lake
direction.
Whitney's better than you think it is? I don't know nothing about Lake Whitney.
Lake Whitney's good, yes.
Possum Kingdom's another one that they could go to. Yeah.
We're so spoiled in the state of Texas.
No doubt.
But 28 pounds on choke to win a tournament does not surprise me.
Maverick One says choke is nasty with stumps. Well, I can assure you that being nasty with stumps does not prevent Bass Pro Tour from scheduling the lake because nothing is any worse than Lake Palestine.
Nothing.
Down the middle of the main lake, looks wide open. There's treetops everywhere. It's the stupidest lake to navigate that I've ever seen. There's no buoys. There's no boat lanes. And I'm talking about from the middle bridge of the lake going south towards the dam, right down the slap middle of it. There's trees everywhere, dude. Like,
Yeah,
it
Lake
does
Palestine,
not.
I would venture to say Lake Palestine might be one of the most dangerous lakes in the country.
Dusty Smith says, y'all hush about my Brazos River lakes. When jig fishing, roughly what clarity would you throw natural versus black and blue jigs? Man, it would have to be awfully clear to get me off black and blue in the wintertime.
Like 3-foot visibility or
Maybe
less?
more. Maybe more. Yeah. I might even need more than that. Like, if it got real clear, I'd go to green and brown or green and orange. But for the most part, that black and blue can work in clear water. Now, if it's extremely clear water, like somebody's talking about a highland reservoir, a mountain fishery like in Missouri, and you got 10 foot of visibility plus, yeah, you're probably gonna have to go to a brown jig, a green and brown finesse. I'm probably gonna go to a finesse jig, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But around here, I don't think of anything that I wouldn't throw black and blue on. They buy black and blue even in clear water around here,
Yeah, black and blue seems to be a thing in East Texas, especially.
just in the South.
Yeah.
In general, they did a deal a few years ago. I think Bass Pro Tour did it, or Major League Fishing, one of their shows did it, where they asked the guys, one of the questions they asked all the anglers was, if you could only fish one color of plastics, what would that color be? And it was like 50-50. Half of them were green pumpkin, and the other half were black and blue, right? And so one thing that I've been doing on my jig is they got this color at 6 Cents Fishing called Nirvana, and it's half green pumpkin and half black and blue. Well, that's the trailer I've been using on my black
Is it
and
a
blue
top
jig.
bottom deal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a laminate.
I
It's a
know what you're
laminate.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been using that stroker call trailer in that Nirvana color on my jig. That's the color I've been using. So I do have a little green pumpkin on my black and blue jig, but just half of my trailer. The other half's black and blue. But they're buying it. They're eating it real good. But normally we, in years past, we've kind of done a deal. We put a few strands of orange in our black and blue jig, and it makes it look different, and it gets bit. Well, man, this year they haven't. I mean, I've gotten some bites on it, but they haven't bit it nearly as good. But having that green pumpkin on there adds a little contrast, a little something different. I don't know if that's helping us or not, but you probably throw a black and blue trail on there and get bit just as good, I would imagine. I will tell you this: as we start getting more rains and that water dirties up even more, I'm going to go to an all electric blue trail.
I've been throwing electric blue lately, and it's been
Nothing
getting bit.
nothing wrong with that this time of year either.
It's been getting bit.
Nothing wrong with that electric blue crawl trailer. By the way, the jig I'm using, I've actually been using primarily the 3/4 ounce hybrid jig. You can use a 1/2 ounce as well. Mike Bray got some bites on the 1/2 ounce with me this last week. But I've been primarily using 3/4 ounce. And it's the hybrid jig from 6 Cents Fishing. Guys, that is the best head on a jig that I've ever seen. And I know I'm a 6 Cents Pro Staff guy, but you can ask Mike. We were running low on jigs, and I bought some Santones, and they just don't get through the stuff and hook the fish as good as the hybrid jig does. They just don't. I mean, and I love a Santone jig. It's really good, but it ain't as good as that hybrid jig. That's the reality of it. And then the trailer I'm using, of course, is the Stroker Crawl from 6 Cents Fishing. You can buy both of those things at 6centsfishing.com. Anything you want to order there, we can get you a little discount on it. If you use the code, Your Lake Fort Guide, it'll save you 10% on anything you order.
I need that deep diving jerkbait to come back.
Is it out of stock?
Oh yeah. That didn't take long. Yeah, no, I've been throwing that electric blue stroker crawl on my jig, and it's been getting bit pretty good.
Any new info on Boat Ark Lake opening? I think it opens this summer.
Yes, that is correct.
It's filling, I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Lorraine, what's going on? Appreciate you joining us. When am I going to switch between a swim jig and a chatterbait? Whew, good question. I tend to use a swim jig as my four-wheel drive fishing bait. Swim jig is my four-wheel drive winding bait. I like to throw a swim jig in heavy cover. I can point right at it and reel it through just about anything I want to. Chatterbait, obviously fish chatterbait in emergent vegetation or around the edges of emergent vegetation. I got to be real accurate if I do. I like a swim jig in heavier cover. Chatterbait more when the cover is scattered, I have a little more open water.
I don't know what it is. I start throwing a swim jig a lot in like mid to late March. For some reason, that's the time frame that I start picking it up.
John Hensley, funny you asked that because we talked about this earlier. John Hensley says, what boat lanes chip should I buy coming from Indiana in March? I'm actually in the process right now at the moment of making a new boat lane ship with very updated. It will be the most thorough and precise and expansive boat lane ship. You'll be able to run all over the lake with it. We're coming up with that. We're working on that right now, and it will be available by March. I think it will be available by March. If not, then ask me again, and I can give you a recommendation on where you can buy a good one at the lake that's not mine. But right now, we're working on getting that one done, and it's going to be really, really good. What kind of rod do I like for a chatterbait? I like a rod to be about 7'4", and I like it to be medium heavy. I actually fish a stiffer rod on traps and chatterbaits than most people do. I can even go 7.5 on a medium heavy. But I do like to have a pretty heavy rod, for chatterbait fishing in grass. If I didn't fish around any grass at all, I'd probably gear it down. Have a smaller rod, a rod with more bend in it. But in grass, if you have that heavier rod, it makes it pause on that grass and rip out. And it makes that easier to do, which is what gets you bites. Because if that grass gets watered up on that bait and you're having to do that to jerk it out of there, that's not when you get bites. You get bites when you do this. Like, that's when you get bit, when you just do those little subtle things. And having that bigger rod makes those little subtle twitches pop that bait out of the grass better, and I get more bites that way. And now I got to be careful and just lean into them on the hook set. If you go to jerking on them on the hook set, you're going to miss some fish on that bigger rod. For sure. I'll tell all my customers.
That blade will pop their mouth open.
I tell all my customers, you can pull on them as hard as you want to, but don't jerk on that chatterbait. It's just like fishing a crankbait. Same thing.
Yep.
Same thing. Have we used the axle from 6 Cents? That thing's a dang full drive. Yeah. So the axle swim jig takes the whole swim. A swim jig to me is the best thing about it is it's a full drive winding bait. I can throw it in anything, and it's a big bulky winding bait. And the axle accentuates that even more because it's got a weedless hook that you can rig your swim bait or your trailer weedless on it and still have a swim jig profile, but completely weedless. And so that makes it even more of a full drive. The axle is very good. Very good. That's another 6 Cents fishing bait that you can order at 6centsfishing.com and use the code Your Lake Fork Guide to get that 10% discount.
So did the axle completely replace the normal swim jig for you? Or do you still use the Divine swim jig?
I still use the Divine swim jig for sure. You said it's funny. You said you use it a lot in March, and I do use the swim jig in the spring at times. I get on spills where I'm using it. Usually when the vegetation starts growing up a lot.
I use it as my search bait.
But dude, in the fall, I use the swim jig in the fall in open water. Yeah. Like they just bite a swim jig in the fall like crazy.
Same.
So I use it a lot in the fall. If I'm in, I want to use that top hook Divine swim jig when I can get away with it.
Yeah.
When I need to use something, if I'm getting junk on it, I'm getting bogged up on it all, then I'm going to use the axle. If I want to present that swim jig profile. So,
see, in the springtime, what I'll do with that swim jig is I'll make it a little more compact and use crawl trailer instead of a swim jig or instead of a swim bait trailer. And then I'll use it around the Shads Pond, and that's when I'll put that swim bait trailer on there.
Fishing Foo says, you guys are talking about some guys are talking about the Dobbins glass rods for chatterbaits, thinking of trying them. Man, there's a lot of guys that use glass rods for chatterbaits. There is. I don't do that because I primarily fish chatterbait in grass, contacting grass, ripping it out. If you try to rip a chatterbait out of grass on a glass rod, you are not going to be as efficient as me, and you're not going to get as many bites because you're not going to get those subtle rips. That extra bend in that glass rod, okay, that composite rod, that is going to allow that grass to load up on that blade a lot more, and you're going to have to rip it more than I do, where I'm just going to be going along on tick, and that's going to do, and then it's going to get the bite. You're going to be sitting over there jerking on it more than I am. You're going to waste more casts than I am. You're not going to get as many of the right kind of twitches out of the grass, that subtle jump. You're not going to get as many of those. You're not going to get as many bites. You're not going to get as big of bites. That's just my belief. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. Now, there's some really good chatterbait fishermen in this world throw it on a glass rod. I just don't think they're fishing the same type of cover that I'm fishing all the time. I don't think they'd be using it. I think they're fishing a chatterbait in more open water.
Yeah.
Or sparser cover than what I'm fishing it in. I will fish a chatterbait in dang near matted grass with the right equipment. David Ozio seen me fishing chatterbait up in an area one day, and he was swimming a worm that he had rigged weedlessly there. And I was fishing. He goes, "What are you catching them on?" He's
That was
like,
a guide tournament.
"Yeah." He's like, "What are you catching them on?" I'm like, "A chatterbait." He goes, "How on earth are you throwing a chatterbait through here?" Because I got the right equipment. And David is a guy that uses lighter action stuff than I do, so it makes sense to me that he would not want to fish chatterbait in there because his is going to get bogged down. I spend a lot of time, man. I throw a chatterbait a whole bunch. It's probably my number one bait that I would throw over anything else. If you told me I could only have one bait, it'd probably be a 3/8 ounce chatterbait. I just, for whatever that's worth, y'all, that's my opinion on it, on the right rod to use. I do not like using a glass rod on a chatterbait. And I don't have hookup issues. The only reason to use a glass rod on a chatterbait is because you're missing fish or losing fish. I don't have that problem, but I set the hook like it's a crankbait. I don't jerk on it. I just pull into it. And then once I got them loaded up, I can pull hard. And now I've got the added bonus. If I've got a bigger rod, I can take control of a 7-pounder. Versus a glass rod, you hook a 7-pounder on a glass rod, you're just holding on and hoping he don't run into nothing. And we're fishing around stumps and brush and all kinds of junk out here that if that fish gets you wrapped around, you're probably going to lose them. I want to have that extra power when I get the fish on my rod. Obviously, we all do, So I don't agree with the glass rod for a chatterbait. I definitely see some merits to it for crankbaits, but I don't use glass rods for anything. I don't even use them for crankbaits, deep diving crankbaits, none of that stuff.
I've only owned one glass rod, and it's for a deep diving crankbait. And
What-
I'll be honest with you, I don't use it.
Here's what I don't understand about people using the glass rod. For sure, 100%, when you use a glass composite rod, you're going to lose feel. You're going to lose sensitivity. Nobody would, even the guys that are the biggest proponents, that are the biggest cheerleaders for glass rods, they will admit that you will lose sensitivity no matter what when you go glass versus graphite. You can buy all different sizes and powers of graphite rods to accommodate the shock absorption that you want for a particular technique. Why would I ever use a glass rod and lose sensitivity when I can get the same bend and shock absorption power from a graphite rod if I buy the right one? I mean, I've got one rod out there that's a one-off. It's 710 medium. I've got it for fishing spoons because I want a ton of bend in the rod. I want a long rod, and I want a ton of bend in it. So what glass rod is going to have more bend than a 710 medium? The answer is none, guys. None. There is not a glass rod that's going to bend more than my 710 medium Lux will. Now, that's not a rod you can go out and buy, I understand that. But you could find one comparable to that if you wanted to on the market in some brand. I just don't agree with the glass rod deal because I'm losing feel. And I don't want to lose feel. I want to feel everything the crankbait hits. I want to feel everything the chatterbait hits. And I want to feel every bite that I can possibly feel. The sensitivity is how I know what's happening with my bait, be it contacting cover or getting bites. And that's what tells me when to twitch my bait, when to slow it down, when to pause it, when to set the hook, like when to pull into a crankbait hook set. That's how I know when to do all that is sensitivity. So why would I ever give that up? I just don't understand why guys think that the glass rod's the way to go. It's just my opinion. Now, there's some guys that are very, very good that disagree with me. Keith Combs throws his crankbait on a glass rod. Rick Clunn throws his crankbait on a graphite rod. So we all have to do things that make us feel better about fishing. For me personally, I don't understand why I would ever give up sensitivity when I can get the same bend in a graphite rod if I want it.
Case in point.
You heard
it first.
Got up on a little soapbox right there, didn't I?
Did.
Because lures you fish on glass rods hook themselves, no need for feel. Yeah, but then you still lose the sensitivity, the feel of what your bait is doing too. I fished a deep diving crankbait on a glass rod. I hated it. I couldn't tell exactly what I was hitting, when I was hitting it, how hard I was hitting it. Like with a graphite rod, when that bait gets down there and it starts digging too hard, I can slow down and make it just tick, 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 tick. With that glass rod, I got no clue, dude.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of glass myself.
Fish. Oops.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. Almost hit the wrong button there. I've been coming to Fork every March since 1996. This is from Fishing Foo 2. Pretty good name there.
I like that.
Seems like the West Arm has faded away to me. Used to hammer them years ago and seems like it isn't the same. Any thoughts? In years past, the grass has grown better. There's areas on the West Arm that are still fine, like that have had vegetation. But in general, the East Arm of the lake has had more grass than the West Arm of the lake has over the last 10 years, whatever. I think that, and for most people, they come to Lake Fork, you know, they're not from here, they're coming down in March. If you get around healthy vegetation, you're just going to catch fish better. So I think that's the reason you're saying that. Here's what I would say. I fish the whole lake year round. I'll get in a stretch where I'm fishing west. I'll get in a stretch where I'm fishing east. Oftentimes, though, I'll be fishing both sides of the lake on the same day. I will tell you right now, I'm not really fishing the east side very much. I did a little bit last week, but I'm primarily fishing the west side right now myself.
I'll be dead honest with you. I have more waypoints on the east side, but I fish on the west side more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the west side is suffered in production. I think it hasn't had as much grass, which makes it not as easy to locate fish at times.
Right. Yeah.
Because that grass just holds the fish for you. You don't have to look for them. They're there. They're in the grass. You know. So I think that's probably the deal that you've been dealing with there, more so than the fish not being on the west side. They're just because the pressure that Lake Fork gets, more and more people all the time, high school fishing, modern electronics, modern mapping, right, uncovers all these offshore areas and everything else. A lot of these fish end up in what we call no man's land, where they end up on these mid-depth stands of timber and they just kind of hang out there. And I mean, if there's not grass to pull those fish into that grass, it can kind of be a chore to find them. And I think that's what goes on the west side is those fish get stuck in between areas that people don't really look for them very much.
Man, I just noticed a pattern about myself. So I fish the west side in the winter, and then during the spawn, early spring, I fish the east side, and then late spring, early summer, and on, I fish the west side.
Yeah, you're coming in March. The other thing about coming in March is the east side is smaller and shallower.
Correct.
More fish will be spawning across the east side of the lake in March than they will the west side.
Correct.
There's areas on the west side where those fish aren't going to really spawn until April. And some areas where they don't spawn, you know, some fish on that west side don't even spawn until May.
Yeah.
So the spawn happens a little bit earlier on the east side in general. Again, it's a lot like the grass. There's areas on the west side that the spawn happens early like it does on the east side, but the whole west arm as a whole is a bigger lake, so it spawns a little bit later.
Yeah.
And if you don't know those little isolated areas on the west side where that early stuff happens, then yes, it would be better to fish the east side in March because you can kind of go up and down, pretty much up and down most of that east arm. All those creek arms are going to have spawning bass in March.
Yeah.
So that may be another reason is the timing of when you came down here. Whereas if you would come in, say, April, late April, May, you might find better fishing on the west arm because you'll have more fish done spawning on the east side and fish right in the spawn on the west
I
side.
think what I like about the west arm too is you'll have more of fish pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. You'll have everything in between to where you can kind of
It's
not
just a
get married.
bigger body of water.
You're
options.
not married to one thing for that particular
more
day.
options. I will tell you this. When I first started fishing Lake Fork all the time, which was 12, 13 years ago now, 12 years ago now, the west side was the popular side. The locals went to the east side to get away from the out-of-town crowd.
Yeah.
Because everybody come from Dallas and that's the side they hit first and everybody's kind of fished over there. That has switched. Definitely, I will tell you that there's a lot more space on the west side to fish. A lot more room to fish on the west side than there is on the east side. Even right now, time of year when it's not really crowded during the weekdays and stuff, a lot more boats on the east side than there is on the west side. For sure. He said, particularly McGee Bay, Lake Fork Creek area. Well, that's way up there where it happens early, though. That is way up there where it happens early. I've actually had some really good years within the last few years up in the McGee area. In Lake Fork Creek, in the summertime, I've caught them really good up in Lake Fork Creek area. I don't really venture up there during spring. I'll tell you this, fishing food, don't worry about coming up. Don't worry about going up to McGee Bay or Lake Fork Creek right now. There ain't no water. It ain't nothing but a channel. Like if you go across the Highway 19 bridge and look south, it ain't nothing but a creek channel for miles. There is no water on them flats out there at all right now, with the lake being 6 foot low. So definitely don't worry about going to McGee Bay or Lake Fork Creek this year in March. I wouldn't think,
Dude,
unless the water comes up a lot.
like 6 foot a lot.
Yeah. Well, you need at least 3 or 4 foot,
Yeah.
to get any water on there on that stuff at all. You need at least 3 or 4 foot of water.
That ain't nothing but duck hunting water right now.
It ain't even that, dude. It's dry land, yeah. It's mud. Like it's just get stuck in the mud is all it is. Like when you drive over the Highway 19 bridge right now, and I haven't, but I know what the depths are up there. Like when you drive over that 19 bridge right now, and you look south, there is nothing but a little creek channel as wide as this table we're sitting at.
Yeah.
That's all there is, as far as you can see, pretty much. I think. I mean, maybe you can see some water down there as it starts to bend back to the right, but for the most part, I bet it's all dry land and just a little channel. If you don't know where the channel exactly is and all the bends are, it'd be a great time to go up there and pull over on the side of that bridge and take a picture. Study that.
So funny you say that. So back in 2011, when we had that big drought,
Oh yeah,
and Lake Palestine was, I want to say, it was
all time low. All the lakes were all time low.
all time low.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the exact number was.
Yeah, pretty much every lake around here was at an all time low.
There was some kids, and this is probably one of the most genius things I'd ever seen at this point. They got a 4-wheeler, and they took their dad's unit from his boat.
Keep in mind, folks, genius is a relative term. He also told me Choke Canyon was 2,000 acres.
Okay. They hooked this deal up in the GPS plug to a battery on their 4-wheeler, and they were driving around marking stuff on their 4-wheeler.
They were marking waypoints on the graph.
Yep.
That is pretty smart.
On a 4-wheeler.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Game warden was pissed.
Why?
Just,
It's public land.
yeah, but it's a lot of hazards all over the place, and if them boys would have gotten in trouble, because they were still
Well, and you can get stuck in some stuff out there you can't
Right,
get out of in those
exactly.
lake beds. You can get
yeah.
stuck in some stuff that you cannot get out of. I mean, there's some stuff. By the way, yeah, if you guys are wanting to go out and explore Lake Fork, you better make sure it's hard clay or it's white sand. Like if you get out in some kind of darkish looking stuff, you might not get your foot back, Jack. Like there's some soft mud out there right now, and it's kind of hard. I don't know what we're gonna do for lunch this year. You can't hardly beach your boat nowhere where you can, unless you bring your mud boots to walk to lunch, because you're going to have to walk through some water and mud to get to the bank.
I was fixing to ask you how that is these days.
It's almost impossible to get a parking spot where you can get out and step on dry ground and walk up to lunch.
Well, there's only, 15 boat ramps you can use now?
Right, but I'm talking about if you want to beach your
Yeah.
boat.
No,
Like we
I know.
always beach our boat at Oak Ridge
I know, yeah.
or Lake Fork Marina to go
Right.
eat lunch during the day.
Right. What are some boat ramps that are no-go right now?
A lot.
Yeah.
It'd be easier for me to tell you the ones to use.
There's probably 10 or 15 that are good.
I don't even think there's that many. I think we're down to 5 or 6 at this point. Do they wear life jackets on the 4-wheelers? Mud jacket. Charlie. Oh, Charlie. By the way, Vic Pearsall, his name is Charlie. That's his name. Do you know about this?
No.
You know what Charlie?
No.
Vic Pearsall's name is now Charlie.
Okay.
Okay. I'll explain that to you later when we're off camera.
Yeah, 10 What's up, Charlie?
Oh, Charlie said someone stole my brick. So what we did the other day was we got out, we went over to Oak Ridge, and I found a spot kind of way over to the right, like right in their boat dock area where the old boat ramp used to be. And I found a spot where I could pull up almost to where you could just step out. And the first guy stepped out. I think it was Vic. Maybe it was Mike. I don't remember if it was Vic or Mike. One of them two stepped out, and there was a cinder block over there that used to be under the water. They just went over and grabbed that cinder block, put it in front of the boat where we could step in and out on the cinder block.
Nice.
I don't think anybody stole your brick there, Vic. I think your brick is still in place. I'm hoping it is because I plan on stopping there for lunch tomorrow and stepping on that brick. It's the only way to get in and out of the lake without getting your feet muddy right now.
Man, you got it rough. You going to the lake tomorrow?
It's a terrible life I live,
Yeah,
son.
you got it rough.
I'm going to go throw a jig all day for all it's worth.
Man.
Me and Mr. Dion are going to Lake Fork. We're going to throw a jig and try to catch 5 big ones.
Well, if you need somebody to talk to, you just give me a call. I'm here for emotional support.
Okay. I probably won't take any time to make any phone calls tomorrow. I'm just going to be
That's
honest with you.
That's fair.
Just going to be real honest with you. My telephone will be the last thing on my mind tomorrow. Mike Halfley asked, what rod do you recommend to throw deep diving crankbaits? 20 to 25 foot. Yeah, the big ones like 10XDs, Cloud 9 series, C20, C25s. Man, they make it's a 7 foot or 8, 711 or 8 foot. I don't remember if it's 711 or 8 foot crankbait rod. It's a Lux series, 6 Sense Fishing. It's a heavy, moderate. So it's a heavy action with a moderate tip. Quit, Skeeter. Go on. Get out of here. Go away, honker.
We got a goose in the kitchen.
But that's the deal. It's a big, heavy action rod to help you throw that big crankbait and all that. You know, you got so much line out and everything. But it has the tip. It's got that moderate tip on it, soft tip on it. That rod's been a really good deep dive crankbait rod for me. It's a little stiffer than probably most people would, or some people would want to throw on a crankbait. But man, when you're talking about 20 and 25, here's the thing, guys. And I need to do a video on this topic. Because I need to do a video on picking a rod for a given crankbait. Because all you have to do is look at the size of the hook. And not the whole treble hook. Look at one. Just one. But when you're talking about a C25 or C20, these treble hooks that come on there, even the one shank of the treble hook.
The gator hooks.
It's a heavy gauge hook, dude.
Yeah.
So you actually need a big rod to pull that hook into them. And oh yeah, since it's got that bigger hook, you don't have to play the fish like you do on a square bill or a jerkbait that has a little bitty hook. If you've got one prong of those C25 treble hooks in them, you got like a 4 or 5 aught hook in that dude. Just bring him to the boat. So that 8-foot rod, heavier rod, it's the one for me. And I don't play fish on deep crankbait. When I hook a fish on deep crankbait, I pull into them, pull as hard as I can, don't jerk, but pull hard as I can, reel down fast as I can. I stick my rod in the water and start cranking. When that sucker gets close to the boat, I just bring him in. Or if it's a real big one, maybe we'll get a net. But usually we just bring them to the boat and flip them in. And I don't ever have any problems doing it. Don't lose hardly any. I mean, I lose some fish on a crankbait like everybody does, but don't lose very many, you know. And Rick Clunn does it the exact same way.
Yeah.
He uses a heavy action rod and boat flips them. I mean,
it's been the same way for 40 years, guys.
Rick Clunn does it the same way that I do it, so that tells me I'm doing it. I'm not totally wrong.
That's 50 years of.
Yeah, I'm not totally wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And then Keith Combs, who's probably the modern day best deep cranker, glass rod, play them out, you know, totally opposite. So it's about what's comfortable for you. That's what works for me. So
What was that rod I picked up in your boat last week and said, damn, this thing's light? Carbon fiber?
the ESP,
Yeah.
oh, the carbon fiber, that's a Team 6 rod with the woven carbon fiber handle. Yeah, it is a lot.
That thing.
And that was a little rod, to be fair. That was a 6.9 medium. That's a jerkbait rod.
still light.
Very light. Very light. Yeah, that woven carbon fiber handle is super light. And by the way, sensitivity techniques like weightless plastics or shaky head drop shot, stuff like that, having a top secret guide stuff here, having a rod that is extremely light in the handle, very big deal.
Yes.
The lighter it is in the handle, the more sensitivity you have in your hand. So those woven carbon fiber handles on those, important. Very important.
Me too, bro.
Somebody said they suck at bass fishing. Chris said, me too. I would be down for this deal. I would like to see a 6 cents pro staff tournament, one big fish winner takes all. Draw the lake out of a hat, got to be in Texas. I love that idea. And I'm in. And here's the deal. We've done miniature versions of that on this channel.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone up against Luke and Darian. Well, Luke's not with us anymore, but Luke Duncan when he was with Team 6. Darian is fishing. Ben Milliken. Mighty Midget. I've gone up against all these guys on camera at times.
Kennard was even fishing on that deal.
He was my teammate one day against Ben, and I don't remember who Ben had in his boat with him. Oh, no, that wasn't Luke, because it was me and Darian versus. First day it was me and Luke versus Ben and Darian. Then the next day it was me and Darian versus Ben and Luke. Just telling you who the winning boat on both days was not Ben Milliken. No matter who my teammate was, I won both days. Listen, I'm not bragging. I'm just repeating results, folks.
Got him.
Just repeating results. And then me and Ben, I think, had a one-on-one fish off. Got him again.
Got him.
I got him 3 times that week, and that was a couple winters ago. That was like the original OG 6 cents pro staff trip before the OH Ivy madness happened. In fact, the original one I kind of put together and did put together the plan of all the lakes we would fish. So to be fair to those guys, I had an advantage. I was the one telling them we're going to this lake on this day, and this lake on this day. So I did kind of have an advantage on them for sure.
You know what I was thinking? You and I need to go fishing again soon. You know how long it's been since we went fishing?
It's been a long time.
A long time.
Dude, and we used to fish together a lot.
A lot.
Yes. It has been a long time.
A couple of years.
Is it? Yeah, probably has to be at this point.
Yeah. I think you and I went out and filmed one day in like February. And
It's been a long time ago.
yeah. Well, your boy's fixing to have Fridays off. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Frank the Tank needs to be in it too. Frank, yeah, I would love. That's something I'd really like to do is get like a few hands, like get some dudes that can, some cats that can go, like get a couple of Elite Series guys that we know.
Mm-hmm.
See, and now Team 6 is a different aspect now a couple of years later because now Josh Jones is there. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a big fish tournament? Like, if Josh Jones is in the field, I want it to be best 5. Like,
Yeah, please.
I don't want it to be a one-fish battle if Josh Jones.
But he might still beat you with one.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, he might. And it's not like the dude doesn't catch multiple fish. Like, he catches bags of fish, not just one.
You just have a better...
At a big fish tournament, I don't want to fish against Josh Jones. He's the best... I mean, he's making a case to be the best big bass fisherman of all time at this point. He's doing things nobody's ever done. Mm-hmm. 2 15-pounders in a year, 4 share lunkers, first one to do that in the state of Texas. I mean, he's making his case to be up there with the very best big bass trophy hunt fisherman of all time. If he's not already there, he's on his way.
Dude's incredible.
So no, I don't want to go against him in a big bass tournament, but he would be there. Like he's there. Lee is part of the 6S team now, which I've fished against Lee in guide tournaments before, but that's a different deal than fishing against just Lee. Like just me versus just Lee is a different deal than me and my customers versus Lee and his customers. That's a different ball game. And I have been fortunate enough to get the better of Lee in one or two of those guide tournaments. But like I said, that's not really, and that wasn't a serious event that anybody was taking all that serious. I mean, I don't know how serious they were. We were taking it serious as hell on my boat. I was. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't think some of the other guys were taking it that serious, to be honest with you. But I was definitely taking it serious. But
every tournament I take serious.
Yeah, dude, Lee's in there, and Ben is a lot better than he was a couple years ago. He's more in tune with Texas bass now, and he's got Ben's deal is he's a good fisherman, but he fishes so much, and not guides, right? Not tournament. He just fishes so much that it's going to make him dangerous. Like he's going to be good because of how much he fishes just for himself, just trying to catch them the best he can. That would be a Team 6 tournament would be a pretty prestigious W. That'd be a tough one to win. A very different. You got Josh Jones and Lee Livesey. That right there says enough. Right, and then Brett Cannon, dude. Brett Cannon ain't no joke. He's really good. I mean, he's not a joke. And if Casey decides to fish, that sucker catches them. Like the owner, he catches them, dude. And everybody up there is hardcore bass fishermen. Everybody that works at the facility, they're all hardcore bass guys.
Yeah, they got it rough.
They all fish tournaments, they're all good. And a lot of them are pretty good. All the ones I know are. So that would be a very cool. Maybe I'll send a text to Casey.
I mean.
So, hey, you know what we need to do, bro? We need to do a Team 6 tournament. Just let it rip, Tater Chip, and see what happens.
I like it.
Yeah. I think we ought to do it on Lake Fork. You know what I'm saying? I think we ought to do it on Lake Fork. Let's do it on Lake Fork.
Or Palestine.
No, I won't do it on Lake Fork. I'm trying to get as much advantage as I can here, bro.
You'd have advantage on Palestine.
On Palestine, I've probably fished Palestine more than any of those guys.
Yeah.
Probably have.
That's what I'm saying.
And I don't fish it that much, but I've fished it enough, Back in the day, I used to fish it more. Dude, we're talking forever tonight. We're just going. We're just having a conversation.
We're just doing it.
Isn't that what a podcast is? Just two guys having a conversation?
We'd like to thank Sonic for sponsoring the podcast tonight.
Actually, Sonic, we would like you to sponsor the podcast if you want to.
That was fake news.
Yeah. My man says, I'm literally taking all 5 weeks of my vacation and fishing in Texas this year. Smart man. Chris, you'll remember this. So back in the day, I used to work with Chris. Chris actually, for a little while, kind of worked for me a little bit up there, but worked with Chris for many years up there at the old beverage distributor.
That's right.
And back then, my vacation time, I would take my vacation time every year during good fishing times, and I would fish. That's all I would do. And even my first couple of years, or my first year and a half or so, 2 years maybe guiding, I was still working up there. And so my vacation time, I would schedule guide trips. I would take vacation to run guide trips. That's what I would do. Yeah. John Spillman says, do you want Lee on Fork? Yep. I want anybody on Fork. Listen, here's the deal about Lake Fork for me. It's not about how good or bad Lee is on Lake Fork. It's the place I'm the most comfortable, right? And I do know for a fact now that Lee has his Elite Series schedule, I spend more time on Fork than Lee does these days. I mean, I used to fish against Lee, like in those guide tournaments where we did fish against each other. He was guiding every day just like I was. We were both on the water 6-7 days a week. I was on the water 6 days a week. He was out there 6 or 7 days a week guiding full time, and I was going against him then. So, yeah, no, I want Lee on Fork. Yeah, I don't want to go against him anywhere else that I don't know, because he's a much more diverse angler than I am as far as the experience he has the last few years. He's got all this experience of going to new bodies of water and figuring them out. He's going to be a lot better than me on other. I think, if anything, Lake Fork brings me not up to his level, but it brings me closer as far as knowledge goes anyway, because I have a lot of knowledge on Fork. So, yeah, no, I want it. If I want to fish anybody, like I don't care who I'm fishing against, if I can pick what lake we're going to, I want to go to Fork. Just because I know more about Fork than I do anywhere else. Sometimes that works against you, though.
Oh, I've been on the raw end of the deal.
I would love to do one of those, and we could never do it because all those guys start their tournaments this time of year and everything. I would love to do one of those, like late January, like right now, late January, early February, on Fork. Just when we used to have the old guys, I'd love to do it that time of year on Lake Fork. Because a lot of guys struggle then, and I love it.
You know who I don't want to see that time of year, though?
Who that is?
Gary Parrish.
Dude, or anytime he decides not to crappie fish.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a guy named Gary Parrish for a minute.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this? This is a dude that, you talk about somebody that doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Yes. No doubt.
And this is one, I don't think we've ever mentioned him on this channel in 5 years, and I don't know why. Like when we talk about the best guides on Fork. And I'll tell you why we don't talk about Gary Parrish. Because he quit bass fishing and bass fish guiding for the most part years ago at this point. He is crappie guiding and he has other businesses, and he kind of semi-retired from being a bass fisherman other than an odd trip here or there years ago at this point. That guy named Gary Parrish that used to fish on the professional tour long time ago, that dude is as good a bass fisherman as there is in the state of Texas, folks. Like,
no doubt.
That cat right there can go now.
Especially in cold water.
Like, anytime he decides to pick up a fishing rod, he just catches it. Like, he just knows what he's doing. He's so good. And it's a shame that he doesn't do it all the time. I mean, there's no telling what that joker would be catching if he was bass fishing all the time.
You know he's got a YouTube channel?
I do. It's mostly crappie.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, he'll put some bass fishing stuff on it. It's mostly crappie on that YouTube channel. Yeah. He's,
That dude's good. That dude's real good.
Gary Parrish is one of them unsung guys. Like a few years ago, Dillard came on the channel with us, and I told everybody, every area has these people that people don't really necessarily know their name, but like that guy's better than everybody else in that area, or as good as anybody in that area. And this is one of them, Brandon Dillard. And then lo and behold, Brandon Dillard goes out and blows out the first day lead on the Bassmaster Open on Lake Louisville. And then also during that time and since has become one of the most successful fishing guides in the DFW area. That's Brandon Dillard. Well, Gary Parrish is one of those guys that has kind of gotten forgotten a little bit, I feel like.
Skeeter was too.
Skeeter's agreeing with everything we're saying. But, dude, he is as good as anybody. I mean, that sucker is solid. Skeeter Bug, what about it? What do you think about fishing? You want to go fishing? Oh, time to go. Gotta go. Let's go fishing. That's all you got to do to get her off. You can head her to the door. So, you want to go fishing? And then she's gone. Now she's mad because we ain't getting up and going with her. She's over here throwing a temper fit at me, stomping her feet around. Chris, I think we ought to go ahead and wrap it up, man. We talked a long, long time tonight, brother.
Yeah.
Look at the people still here.
I know, they're still
We're
hanging.
still over 100 in the live, in the chat.
I guess we're cooler than we thought.
The Team 6 tournament needs to be filmed by everyone. I assure you that Team 6 tournament would definitely be filmed in every boat.
No
Guaranteed.
doubt. It would be like an HBO miniseries when it was all said and done.
Yeah. Dude, it's a really good idea. I would love to try and put it together. I just don't know what time of year we'd be able to. The problem with stuff like that is the schedules. Because my schedule's stupid with my fishing and my kids events, and Casey's schedule is stupid with owning and running 6 Cents and having his kids, and Lee's schedule is stupid with the Elite Series and guiding, and Josh Jones's schedule is stupid with guiding. You could go down the list. Every one of those guys is on that team because they're successful in some way.
That's right.
And all of their schedules, to get them all to line up, it's like,
Yeah.
bro,
No doubt.
that's a difficult task to even get a majority of those schedules lined up. So that would be the challenge to doing it, but I would love to do it. So that being said, Chris, give me some tunes, man. Crank it up.
What you want? What you want?
Crank that Whiskey Myers back up.
Oh, man.
Because you know what? I mean, I don't mind work and I like to fish. And I've been known as a son of a fish. Yeah. Cheers, y'all. It's been a Fish Life podcast, man. We stayed gone for a long time, but then we stayed for a long time. You know what I'm saying, Blake?
Yeah, but we're making it up to them.
This like 2 episodes in one.
That's right.
Don't worry about the last one we missed.
We cut you on the backside to make up for it on the front.
We'll get there one way or the other, folks.
Yeah, that's right.
Always. Lowest budget, actually live fishing podcast. Makes us the L-balls. Makes you guys the low ballers. That's Whiskey Myers. Chris, do that thing you do.
Black and blue, electric blue trailer. Then I go flip a jig in a creek channel.
Woo! Let's leave the singing to Cannon. All right.